In this segment, Stephanie Miller is joined by Noel Casler. Noel, who's worked with Trump in the past, shares his thoughts on the Donald's state of mind as he faces several days in court. Here's Stephanie.
One well-placed landmine. Sort of that's what he's doing in Congress, right? He has these chaos agents, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, who can shut it down. He can do the same thing in the judicial branch. And people forget, Trump was involved in 4,000 lawsuits before he became president.
Yeah.
He would always use the judicial world as a weapon because he had deep pockets. And he knew he could outlast somebody else who was going to go against him and make a claim for the money that Trump owed him.
This is the crazy-making thing. Trump's team had asked the judge to delay his trial in the case till after the 2024 election due to delays in creating a SCIF for him to view the documents. And Cannon had granted a temporary stay while she decides whether to push back the pretrial schedule. This is the thing he's on trial for. And by the way, we just got chatting about all kinds of the Bobby Kennedy Jr. invited me falconing. But here's another dating fun fact you didn't know. My longest term ex was an Israeli tank commander.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also a runway model. But it's
Is it Gal Gadot? Is that?
yes. My girlfriend was Gal Gadot.
Looks like Gal Gadot.
She actually does look a lot like Gal Gadot. You know my type. Yeah, but of course this is complex, Noel. And I remember her mom always used to, they live, half the year in Tel Aviv, and she said, when there's peace here, you'll come over and visit. And I said, well, when there's peace there, pigs will fly out of my ass, and you'll want to come here and see that. So, it's obviously, we were saying, because suddenly everybody becomes a, Israel expert, right? But it is a complex problem. But it's just on cue, they're going to blame Biden rather than where the blame belongs. Like we keep talking about Hamas and Netanyahu, and the parallels between Netanyahu and Trump are a little bit terrifying too.
It's the same thing. And Netanyahu used to sleep in Jared Kushner's bedroom when he would visit Charles Kushner in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Netanyahu and Jared's dad go way back, and Jared's dad is uber corrupt.
Yeah.
And like
I
you
love
said,
when you call him a
becomes an
hairless.
expert.
I love when you call him a hairless cat on Twitter. I don't know why, because he does look like is it Mr. Bigglesworth? He does look like
That's who he is.
Dr. Evil's cat.
Yeah, he's scary. He is obviously I knew him, and he was like, he has an affect that's like soulless. And I would tell people, Trump wants music to play when he walks in the room. He wants to get high and he wants to hit on women, right? He wants immediate gratification to fill that hole inside of him. Jared and Ivanka, Vanki as I call her, they're playing the long game.
Yeah.
They're looking, like I said, they're working the room to see what they can get out of the Russians that are there. Trump's looking to see, what girl he can hit on that night, So she's lucky she's not named in the trial. That's only basically a technicality that she wasn't officially in charge of Trump Organization at the time that's covered in this trial. She was the face of Trump Organization when I worked for them. She was the face of the Azerbaijan Baku, tower. She was the Baja scammer who would say, hey, if you buy a condo, I might just knock on your door and borrow a cup of sugar because I'm going to live here too. Invest.
Timeshare salesman, Chris's favorite.
Yeah, great.
And they never even built the thing. It was a scam. Same thing in Toronto. So she was the public face of the organization. Now she's playing innocent and sitting in her private mansion down there in Miami with the hairless cat, and hanging out with people.
I'm sure my husband, Mr. Bigglesworth.
Exactly.
God, speaking of classified secrets, Trump lashed out at what he called ridiculous bombshell allegation he revealed nuclear sub-secrets to a chatty Mar-a-Lago member, and then 3 hours later attacked Biden, because of course he did in a late-night rant. Trump lashed out over the story and tried to advance an alternate version of events, as he tends to do, insisting that he was just being a booster for American military might. Does he know how laughable his lies are? I mean, seriously. He said, I will always promote the greatness of America and its military equipment. I like creating jobs in America, which was one of my most successful achievements as president. Except he's the only president that lost jobs.
Right.
Yes.
Right? I mean, It's just everything he says. But he said, I was just bragging about, how great the American... No, you weren't. You were sharing secrets about our capabilities. I mean, go ahead.
Absolutely. And as we know from General Milley's revelations, Joint Chiefs of Staff Milley, who's actually retired 4 days ago, Trump called them suckers and losers. He despised the military. When I worked with him, that was an era in live TV where any show you shot in New York, we would set up part of the audience aside for veterans that were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. We just wanted them on camera. We wanted to thank them for their service. It was a little gesture. I was the guy who headed that up at the Super Bowl. If you ever saw before the third quarter, we would have some airmen and we would do a camera shot and just let everybody clap for them. It was just standard operating procedure in live TV in New York City for about a decade. Trump's show, the Celebrity Apprentice finales, which were live, were the only show I worked on where we didn't set aside a portion of the audience for vets, because Trump didn't want them there. He would say, nobody wants to see that.
Yeah.
Look, Don Jr. wanted to threaten to join the Marines, and Trump said he would disown him if he did.
I mean, it is one of the stunning things, as Hillary would say about this cult, is that they somehow think he's, supports the military. I mean, it just, I for the life of me, I can't understand why one military person would ever vote for him, because it's not like just the one or two things you've mentioned. It's like a string of disgraceful things, right? John McCain, the Gold Star families, on and on and on, right?
And they don't see it. That's the bulk of my work, is trying to explain that now, because I live in the part of the country where military is huge. Putnam County, northern Westchester, people, all the flagpoles, all the street signs have the pictures of the vets who served, and everybody's got our flags, and we support our troops. And, they're the sons of Vietnam vets and World War II vets and Korea's vets. And it's like, you're supporting a guy who wanted to do business in Russia, who gives secrets to Rachel. Who do you think we were fighting by proxy in those wars?
Yeah, we're getting ready to inter my mom with my dad in Arlington, and every time they bring up, I'm like, if they bury that mother, I can't promise I'm not going to prison doing something. Yeah. I mean, he is such a traitor, And by the way, my dad is right near the Eternal Flame, bringing us full circle to our Kennedy stories. And also that John did go to my one-woman play off-Broadway in New York and left his scarf there, and I held it hostage, but he never came back. Okay.
You still have it?
We have a lot of weird random stories. I don't have as many stories as Noel Casler, but...
Well, let's do the Vietnam. Can I do the Vietnam thing?
Yes.
My grandfather was worked with Nixon his whole life, and ended up getting in a fight with Kissinger over the bombing of Cambodia, and left and moved my family to Ireland, became an expatriate, but was a big guy in the Foreign Service. And my family was in Vietnam in '63 when President Dien fell, basically. And my grandmother, my dad, my uncles and aunts were on a plane taken off as tanks were coming out down the runway and stuff. And, like the fact that Trump had 5 deferments, the fact that he spits on the graves, essentially, of soldiers, and the families in Foreign Service, because people don't realize the sacrifice of the family of Army brats being in 10 schools before you're in 6th grade, always being the new kid, not seeing your parents. There's so much sacrifice that goes into a democracy. To have a guy like that disrespected is beyond the pale.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about RFK Jr. and other chaos agents. We have to be careful of the 24. I could only get through one line of this story, Jody. Senator Joe Manchin said an open Democratic primary would make President Biden a stronger candidate.
No. See Ted Kennedy versus Jimmy Carter.
Exactly.
Yes, I don't know. Between Manchin and his ego running and RFK running as an independent, obviously Russia, Saudi Arabia, God knows who else getting involved, right, trying to influence our elections. It is, I know we always say polling this far out, like don't pay attention, but it is just, I know I keep overusing the word terrifying. But just talk to me about your thoughts on 2024 in general.
Well, it is terrifying, right? Because you only need to flip a certain amount of people in 3 states: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, which is what we should be focusing on as Democrats, because that's what they were able to flip in 2016. Yeah. And people forget, Jared had a back channel with the Russians, right? He set one up right away. And what happened was Jared called up his buddies in Silicon Valley at Facebook and said, how do I micro-target people? How do I find the demographic of, like, say, union members that voted for Obama but also have a gun and a Kid Rock CD? You know, how do I find these specific people? And what they did is they targeted them with misinformation, right?
Yeah.
Then Jared fed that info to Russia. They gave it to Cambridge Analytica, and all of a sudden these people were being fed disinformation, and they voted against their own interests. And you only needed, you know, however many votes equated to the electoral, you know, votes they needed. I don't know the numbers on my head, but it's a small fraction of the population. And that's what's so dangerous, because a guy like Manchin, a guy like RFK can peel off enough.
Yeah. Justin, we already saw it in those three swing states. Yeah, it's the Electoral College. Don't get me started. Okay. Yeah. Jessica Tarlov on Fox on what Hillary's comments on 24.
And then I told you, so all of that is happening, and he's shooting up in the polls. And when you see those interviews of Trump supporters outside of the rallies, they're like, none of this is true. It's the big lie. He won the election, et cetera. And you wouldn't say to me, you guys are in a cult? It's actually tame, what Hillary Clinton was saying.
Yep. Are we ever going to deprogram these people, Noel? I mean, I know it's a smaller and smaller percentage of the actual population, but, you know, what do you think?
We have to keep trying, and that's why I applaud you, Stephanie. You have a huge audience. You're on here every day. You're putting truth out there, right? And your followers learn things on your show, and then they'll repeat it. Because sooner or later, you will be able to sort of deprogram some of these people, not the diehards, right? But the people that are paying more attention to their kids', you know, high school sports than they are the headlines, you know, and they're turning on Fox News because it's a cultural thing instead of reading the New York Times or turning on MSNBC. Those people we can reach, but we have to understand that it is a cultural issue at this point, and that's what Trump is playing off of, right? Yeah. He's using the greed and avarice of chaos agents like Manchin and RFK, you know, from a strategic standpoint, but culturally, he's waving a flag, you know, and saying Joe Biden's going to take your guns and have a transvestite, you know, transgender person, sorry to use that other term, you know, teaching your kids. Just crazy scare tactics, but that's all they get. Yeah. And they feel like they're the good guys.
Do you
know,
think...
that's the core issue, is they feel like they're the patriots because they're being told that they are.
I wonder if the Jessica Tarlofs of the world, because we keep applauding her. I mean, you know, it's not often they let an alpha liberal like that on Fox News. Do you think she's breaking through it all to the Fox audience, or is there just too much cognitive dissonance and they just are like, oh, that's the dumb liberal, you know, whatever she says?
No, I do think she's breaking through. Yeah. I think she should be applauded for her efforts for you know, not, because a friend of mine, I shouldn't say his name publicly, but Eric is a weekend, I won't say his last name, but a friend of mine, Eric, is a weekend anchor on Fox News. He came over from the local network level when Murdoch came in. He's a legit reporter. Right. You know, he was pushing back this weekend on the $6 billion on air. And he tells me privately, he's like, these guys are nuts. Yeah. He goes, it's worse than it was under Roger Ailes, because basically what happened was Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity, all their producers and staffers are like 28-year-old racists from the Daily Caller, and that's all they're listening to because they're just thinking about the numbers and the algorithm and the greed. Hey, we're getting clicks off of this. Yeah. You know, Sean Hannity doesn't even believe this crap, but he's got 800 properties all over the East Coast, and he likes money.